Welcome back to Insight Review as we look back on the defining stories of the past 7 days. Two of the United States' most tight-lipped intelligence agencies were forced into the public eye this week. FBI Director James Comey and the NSA Director Admiral Michael Rogers were both brought before a House Intelligence panel to answer questions on everything from alleged wiretapping of Trump Tower to Russian involvement in last year's U.S. election.
Director Comey confirmed for the first time that his agency was investigating Russian efforts to disrupt and influence the U.S. presidential election, including alleged ties between Russia and the Trump campaign.
And that includes investigating the nature of any links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether there was any coordination between the campaign and Russia's efforts.
Later in the hearing, Trump tweeted from the president's Twitter account that Comey's testimony had cleared the U.S. election of any Russian involvement. But Comey said that was not accurate.
We've offered no opinion, have no view, have no information on potential impact because it's never something that we looked at.
President Trump's controversial claim that his predecessor, President Obama, wiretapped Trump Tower was also addressed. When asked about the veracity of Mr. Trump's tweets regarding wiretapping, Mr. Comey said they have no information supporting the president's claims.
All right, we are back with the political commentator Shyama Perara and the editor-in-chief of the International Interest, Sami Hamdi. Guys, let's just call this what this is. This is a criminal investigation at the doorstep of the White House.
Yes, it's an allegation of treason, ultimately, isn't it? But it's very difficult to follow, I think, from here, Dana, because I
think it's difficult to follow from there.
It's all smoke and mirrors. I mean, we're now told that there is more than circumstantial evidence. I think Adam Schiff, who is one of the congressmen on this committee,
Democrat,
is saying that, you know, there is now more than circumstantial evidence. But, of course, he can't tell us what that evidence is. And his allegation is that there is evidence that even he has not seen that has been taken to the president. And this just becomes really difficult because you're dealing with the unknown. So one can speculate madly and create all sorts of sort of dystopian fantasies about what might be happening between the two powers, but it might ultimately be very little. One doesn't know.
I mean, there's some political theater here, Sami, right? When you take a look at the fact that the director of the FBI comes out and says they're investigating Trump, Team Trump, any connection to Russia. And instead of the Intelligence Committee now focusing on a criminal allegation, they start questioning whether the intelligence agencies leaked to the media, and is that a criminal offense? I mean, that was a pretty good diversion.
Yeah, Trump is an expert at diversions, and you know, he's insulted every single institution in the US, whether it's FBI or CIA or whatnot. I think with regards to the Russian interference itself, I think the biggest problem is not necessarily was there Russian interference or intervention, is how do you define Russian intervention? Do we define the fact that because of the fake news phenomenon, Russia today became a main source of credible in quotation marks information? Do we take the fact that because WikiLeaks leaked about Hillary Clinton's emails and that somehow shifted the shift towards Donald Trump, people believe whether that had ties with Russia or like, does that count as
well,
Russia
if it's Kremlin directed and they've actually hacked into the DNC and there's coordination between the Trump campaign committee and the Russians to leak that information within days of the election, I mean, that's a criminal matter. It's treason.
No, that does sound like criminal. That does sound like
espionage.
But the thing is, did Trump cooperate with the Kremlin? Did he speak, or did Putin have a specific preference for Donald Trump that he wanted him to win as opposed to Hillary Clinton? There are so many different possible scenarios that if I was Comey sitting there, I mean, he looks himself like he's not quite sure how this investigation should take place.
Who looks like?
Comey looks like he does not quite sure how this investigation should take place. Says, I have no information. I mean, we haven't even looked into the fact there's Russian intervention.
I mean, that's probably, you're coming to the core of it. You're coming to the core of it. How should the investigation take place? Because in the end, it is a Democrat and Republican committee, and you have the two sides heading in very different directions over this, to the point that this week you have Devin Nunes, who is the chairman of the committee, going and informing the White House and meeting with Trump about what he has heard from the intelligence and whether that does or does not clear him. So now you have the Democrats on the committee saying, this committee's not credible anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think what you have to have is an independent committee, isn't it? I think you call it eminent, respected eminences or something in the United States. But again, I think this has been brought into such disrepute that I'm not sure what anyone would believe any committee that looked into this, because the people at the core of it, the people at the heart of it, mainly from the Republican camp, are just shifting all the time. Little pieces of new information are coming through all the time. One just doesn't know if the snapshot you get today is the same as the snapshot you'll get tomorrow. And I think that makes it very difficult. I mean, that's what I mean about smoke and mirrors. You've got absolutely no idea what is true and what isn't. And everything is hinted at. Nothing is specific.
I mean, what are the implications for the rest of the world watching this from the outside, Sami, when you look at it and people no longer see it as a credible process?
The thing is, this is exactly the point I wanted to make. The outside, I mean, within the US, you know, when I speak to some of my US friends in particular, it's a very serious issue whether Trump cooperated with the Russians and whatnot. Trump supporters don't really care. They see it as a conspiracy from sore losers who are the Democrats, from Hillary Clinton's extensive networks across the world.
Neither side is going to see it as a fair process.
Exactly. But in areas such as, let's say, Africa, Middle East, like with Asia, many people are saying, and I know this sounds controversial, that the chickens are coming home to roost. That US interference in elections across the world, US interference in elections across the Middle East, across Africa, across the Asia, people are saying now that it's very interesting to see how the US is dealing with a phenomenon that these countries have had to deal with for decades.
Shyama,
But I think we're out.
Final thought, go ahead.
I just think it's very scary in this particular instance that it's the Russians rather than any other power.
Sami and Shyama, thank you so much for your views and insights today. You've been watching Inside Review, and we want to leave you kind of where we began today, and that is with messages of encouragement left on the whiteboards at tube stations across London in response to Wednesday's attack.